All right, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining me in this stream today. So I have a new microphone setup, so hopefully the audio sounds better. If you can hear me, just let me know in the comments just to make sure everything's set up. I think everything's working correctly, but I just want to double check. Uh, yeah, that's working. Hopefully we'll be all set. Thank you everyone for joining me. Today we're going to be doing an update on the Octocontrabass and Octocontralto clarinet projects. So I think I mentioned in the last video discussing the Octocontrabass clarinet that I was having some problems with the acoustics of the instrument. And what I initially thought was that it was the mouthpiece. And that was part of the problem, but I'll get into that further as I go in the video. All right, looks like we got some more people here. Hello, everyone. Okay, good. So you can hear me. Awesome. Yeah, good. Yeah, so I got all my low clarinets here. So the octo contralto clarinet here, just my regular contrabass instruments. So the first thing I tried was I just wanted to try a standard contrabass mouthpiece. This is a Phobes debut contrabass mouthpiece. It's got, I think, like a 2.15 millimeter tip opening. Nothing special. My reasoning on that was, why can't I do that on my lower clarinets? And so I thought, why don't I try using a contrabass clarinet mouthpiece and see if that would work? And it kind of worked. It was okay, but I could always notice that these instruments just weren't playing as good as you would hope. What I did from there was I reached out to a few mouthpiece makers, and the first one to reply back to me was Clark Phobes, and we were kind of talking a bit. And he ended up sending me this Phobes debut, which had been modified. So it has, instead of a 2.15 millimeter tip opening, it has a 2.5 millimeter tip opening. So more tip opening. So theoretically, you could put more air through the instrument, a wider window. So theoretically, that would help with the response of the lowest notes. And that definitely worked a lot better. But I still felt like the instrument was lacking. So now I finally have the skills and the equipment to both design and build my own mouthpieces. So the first thing I wanted to try out was building my own octo, had access to them. So that's kind of what I did. Sorry, just a sec. So I found a picture of the original Octocontrabass, Octocontralto. They're the same mouthpiece. A picture of the original mouthpiece from LeBlanc on the internet, and it was next to a contrabass mouthpiece. And I kind of used Photoshop to kind of measure the sizes relative to one another of the mouthpieces. And I kind of figured out that the socket diameter of the original Octocontra instruments was probably around maybe 39, 40 millimeters. So I kind of designed a mouthpiece that theoretically it could work with the original block instruments. I thought that was just kind of a neat little thing that I did. The biggest problem with making a custom mouthpiece is finding reeds. So for the longest time, the largest reeds that were available were these reeds. And these are just standard contrabass clarinet reeds. And unfortunately, for the longest time, I couldn't get anything bigger than that. But just recently, a company, I believe their name is Ligatures in Brazil, they're starting to make sub-contrabass saxophone reeds. Unfortunately, I tried to order them, but due to the pandemic, unfortunately, I just can't get them right now. So it's probably going to be maybe a couple months before I get them, unfortunately. For right now, a contrabass reed just barely fits on this mouthpiece that I designed. So that's what I've been kind of using. I did try to use this. So this is a Ligatures contrabass saxophone reed. And this, unfortunately, didn't work as well as I would have liked. It's just too hard. I tried the trick where I dipped it in boiling water, and that unfortunately didn't work. So at least, though, I had a mouthpiece that I could use with just a reed that I had on hand. It's not ideal. Eventually, I do want to get full-size sub-contrabass saxophone reed I'm using so far. This is like the third prototype. And I've just been experimenting with different shapes for the window, different openings in the inside, different bore diameters, just all kinds of different parameters that I could change to try and see what would make this mouthpiece play as good as possible. And what I've kind of settled on is a mouthpiece. Yeah, that's what I think. Either the reed was either the reed was too thick, or it was just too hard. These reeds are only available, I think the softest size you can get is 3, but those aren't available. So all I could find was 3.5. It's what I could get. Eventually I'm going to get some wooden reeds that'll hopefully be softer, and hopefully that'll work better. But yeah, so I eventually settled on a tip opening of 3 millimeters. So keep in mind, a standard contrabass mouthpiece is about 2.15 millimeters. So quite a bit more open than a standard contrabass mouthpiece, and a very long facing. So let me just, so I have the Octocontrabass Clarinet here. So it's a contrabass mouthpiece with a contrabass reed. So let's see how it sounds. So unfortunately, it does seem like it does seem like it's a little bit better than it was last time, but it still seems like it's stuffy and resistant, and it just doesn't want to speak clearly. And I think part of that is because the tone holes are just too small. Unfortunately, when I tried to build this, I only had bass clarinet keys on hand, and that means I can only make the tone holes so big. So unfortunately, I don't think that really worked for this instrument. So I think there's a leak somewhere, but you can hear that the low E is much, much more powerful than it was with the contrabass mouthpiece. Unfortunately, I don't have the receiver for the contrabass mouthpiece, so I can't demonstrate it. But just take my word for it that it's much easier to play a low E in this instrument, which does seem to suggest that the larger mouthpiece is working. No, unfortunately, I still have to make the keys for the, I haven't really made any progress on the Octocontrabass clarinet, unfortunately. I recently actually moved to a different apartment, and I'm still kind of in the process of setting up my shop. So I haven't really had any time to work on it. But yeah, I haven't had a lot of time to design and mouthpieces, so which I made a lot of progress in that, which I'm really happy, because now I actually feel confident that I have a mouthpiece that will work with these instruments and will sound really good. But yeah, so the low E definitely sounds a lot better. So it suggests that the larger tip opening, the larger window, and just the overall larger dimensions on this mouthpiece really do help it play better. So next, let's try the same mouthpiece. I just need to remember to grab this ligature. So let's try it on the Octocontrabass clarinet. So we know it works okay with the Octocontrabass clarinet, but there's some issues with the instrument itself. So I have to wrap the tenon in tape a little bit. Hopefully I can get a tenon machines or a socket for the mouthpiece machines soon, so I won't have to keep wasting tape. But right now, this will be good enough. Oh, and actually, one more thing I forgot to mention about this mouthpiece. So one other thing I was kind of worried about was trying to find a ligature. So what I did was I made the outer diameter. So that saved me from having to design my own ligature, which I don't think I could really do in any reasonable time span. So let's put the mouthpiece on the instrument and let's try it out. Actually, this isn't the reed I like. I have 2 reeds, and one of them doesn't quite work as well as the other. I don't know what that means, though. May mean I have to buy like 3 or 4 reeds, find one that I like in order to use with this instrument. All right, let's give it a shot. So with this instrument, the mouthpiece works really, really good, not just in the lower register, too, in the upper register. So yeah, I'm really excited with how well this mouthpiece works with this instrument. And I think this mouthpiece will work just fine with that. So that's pretty exciting. If you finish the Octocontrabass, would you sell them or try to make them out of different material like the contrabass? I would love to sell them. I need to get it'd be really hard to figure out a way to get them manufactured for any reasonable price. Maybe if I can make a really good prototype, then I can have somebody manufacture them maybe, but it would be many, many years away. Thanks everyone. If I were Jared, I'd publish the measurements online and open source. Yeah, first I need to figure out all the measurements myself, because I'm pretty much just winging it. I'm just guessing and checking, kind of changing everything as I go. Once I get the dimensions, I mean, really the dimensions aren't the hard part. Anybody could really figure out. I think it's just building the whole thing, specifically building the Keywork. That's probably the one thing that would stop most people from pursuing a project like this. What else? Got some other question. Yeah, so that was the mouthpiece on the Octocontrabass clarinet, and you know, I thought if it works so well, if it works okay on the Octocontrabass clarinet, and it works really well on the Octocontralto clarinet, how well would it work on a contrabass clarinet? And that's where I went next. And this is kind of one of those things where it's not necessarily directly related to the project, but it was kind of like a side project that I did with the stuff that I've learned from this project. So what I did, let me describe the ligature and the reed, is I made a contrabass mouthpiece with the same facing as the Octocontrabass mouthpiece. So as far as contrabass mouthpiece goes, this thing is a huge facing, a huge tip opening and a very long facing. So I was kind of thinking that maybe this wouldn't work. I was just kind of doing it as an experiment. And what I found was that this mouthpiece actually plays really, really well on my contrabass clarinet. So let me just demonstrate that now. And actually, if you just saw the video I posted today on the contrabass, that was done with this mouthpiece. I found that this thing really, really responds very well. And it's probably going to become my main mouthpiece. So I am really blown away by how well that works. I think it kind of shows that contrabass clarinets, even though they've been around for well over a century at this point, there's still a lot we can learn about them. It kind of leads me to believe that every single commercially available contrabass clarinet mouthpiece out there just doesn't have a big enough tip opening and long enough facing to properly play with the instrument. So I was so happy with this mouthpiece. I started making more of them. I actually have 2 professional players who were interested in them. One professional player already got one of my prototype mouthpieces, and they have an Eppelstein contrabass clarinet. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. But anyway, yeah, he said it's much easier to play in the upper register with my custom mouthpiece than the Phobes mouthpiece that he was using before. So that really makes me feel good that I can design a mouthpiece that works better on a contrabass clarinet than a hand-finished custom mouthpiece. So I think there's really some promise with these mouthpieces. So I'm going to keep working on the design and try and make a production version that hopefully I could sell for around $100. So not only would it be a really good contrabass mouthpiece, it'd be one that's cheaper than any available on the market. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, I remember watching that video of Trent Hamilton dropping the contrabass drum tone. Fortunately, I haven't dropped any of my expensive instruments yet. I've dropped a few like cheapo instruments in the past. I'm not too worried about that. Yeah. Fortunately, I actually use a Hercules bass clarinet stand with my contrabass clarinet, and it seems a little precarious, but I've used it for over a year, and it's nice and solid. I've never had an issue with it, so I really trust it to hold the contrabass. This one is just on a guitar stand, which definitely is not ideal, but again, I've never had it fall, so fingers crossed, hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. That's going to be my next big project. I need a neck for my Vito. Oh yeah, so that's actually exactly where this neck came from. On eBay, somebody was selling a Vito Contralto clarinet for parts. And this contrabass didn't have a neck, so I just asked, can I buy the neck for $150? So that's what I did. So that might be your best bet. I've tried to make figure out how to make like a homemade neck for these instruments. No commercially available tubing fit. You have to machine it from scratch, which is, at the time that I was trying to fix this instrument, it was more than I was capable of. So I had to buy a neck. I could probably make one now, but it would be a hassle. Yeah, I'm hoping that because I remember when I started playing contrabass clarinet, the hardest thing was finding a good mouthpiece. Because the problem is, in order to test mouthpieces, you got to spend like $200 on a mouthpiece that like players who are in like colleges that own these instruments can use. I think that would be a really good option for both students and professionals alike. So figuring out the tone hole placement. So if you've kind of been watching like the Brett Newton's Great Bassoon Project and like Richard Bobo's Subcontract Bassoon Project, you know there are formulas to do it, but I find the easiest way is either to, trial and error. It's a tried and true method. PVC pipe is cheap. You can get like I think a 10-foot piece of PVC pipe is like $5 by me. So Octocontrabass clarinet, what I would do is I would take like a piece of string and I would like bend that around the curves and then figure out where the tone hole lies and straighten that string out and then measure it. And that usually actually works pretty well. So one fortunate thing about lower clarinets, the bigger the instrument, the more the tolerance. So on like an E-flat clarinet, if you move the tone hole 1/4 of an inch, that's going to cause a huge intonation problem. On a contrabass clarinet, if you move the tone hole 1/4 of an inch, it's barely going to change the pitch at all. Maybe like 10 or 20 cents at most. Probably even less than that, honestly. Could be as little as 5 cents. The point is, the bigger you go, the less you have to worry about being precise. Now, obviously, of course, you want to be precise as possible, but there's at least a little bit of room for error. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason I didn't want to do it initially, just because it's a lot of complicated math. I mean, I do have an engineering degree, but I want to do as little work as possible. Okay, so I've been really happy with this contrabass mouthpiece, and it kind of goes to show that like I think a bigger tip opening, the longer facing, like the difference between the facing on a bass clarinet mouthpiece and a contrabass clarinet mouthpiece is way less than the difference between a bass clarinet and a standard B-flat clarinet mouthpiece. I recently switched my bass clarinet mouthpiece to a Van Doren B50. That's actually the same facing as on my contrabass clarinet mouthpiece, and I really like that bass clarinet mouthpiece. So it kind of makes sense that the tip opening and facing length back from some pro players out there who play contrabass clarinet. So I'm just kind of waiting for them to receive their mouthpieces, give me some opinions of them, tell me what they like about them, what they don't, and I hopefully change it from there. No, the Octo, I'm still where I am the last time. So let me actually go over all the keys that I need to make on this. So far I still need some left-hand levers for B and, or B, E, and F sharp, C sharp. So I don't have any left-hand levers up here other than the C sharp, G sharp key. I need an E flat trill key. I still have to figure out how I'm going to make that because it has to kind of bridge the joint, but I want to be able to take it apart. So I need to make some kind of bridge mechanism. I got to figure that out. I need the thumb key. I have the Keywork for the open G, but there's no tone hole underneath here, so I got to make the tone hole. I need the A and the G sharp key, and then I need the second register vent, which also doubles as the throat key flat vent. And I think that's all the keys I need. So hopefully, once I get my shop set up, I can start working on that again. Yeah, so I also need a better stand because this thing is not ideal at all. And hopefully, once I get my shop set up, my plan is to make a better version of the Octocontrabass clarinet, because I don't really think it would be worthwhile to salvage this, just because I don't think any of the tone holes are really big enough for what the instrument needs. I was kind of just looking at pictures of the LeBlanc Octocontrabass clarinet today, and I just noticed that the tone holes are huge relative to the bore. So I think I really need to do the same in order to get a good sounding instrument. So I think that's what I'm going to have to do, which is kind of as much from a failed prototype as you can from a working prototype, and probably even more perhaps. So this will probably be a nice wall hanger. It's pretty cool looking. it kind of works. I suppose like if somebody wrote a piece with only a few notes, you could play it. But yeah, I wouldn't consider this to be a good instrument by any means. Got some questions. When both projects finish, will you get together with Bobo and play some duets? Hopefully, that would be really cool, playing some duets between Octocontrabass, Clarinet, and Subcontrabass soon. That would be really, really fun. I'd have to figure out how to find like an event we could meet at. I mean, because I'm probably never going to go to like an IDRS conference, and he's never going to go to anything I had to go to. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully both of our projects are finished fairly soon. I mean, he's made a ton of progress. He's made some amazing progress, actually. And hopefully, once I get my shop up, I can start to make some good progress as well. But that can separate. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I know what you mean. So most paperclip contrabass clarinets, whoops, they have a tenon right here. So right below the first touch piece, if I'm not mistaken, so that the trill key is all on one joint. Unfortunately, with my clarinet, I've already designed it so that the way the instruments are designed, I guess I could make a solid key, but you would have to kind of reinstall it every time you assemble it. Time to harvest berry. Yeah, I've been kind of on the lookout for a cheap berry sax. I think that's going to be the best option. They have fairly large pad cups. I may need more than one, unfortunately. So hopefully I can find one for like $200 that's just absolutely trash. And that would be pretty good for parts. You can salvage Keywork from the Octocontrabass, use it for the Octocontrabass. Yeah, I think that's going to be the plan. Well, actually, I mean, I have enough spare bass clarinet parts that I don't think I need to salvage it just yet. I kind of want to keep it as like a wall hanger because it's just pretty cool. If I need a key, though, from it, I will take it. How do you buff keys well? It's called Mother's Polish. You can find it in like automotive stores. I think Walmart also has it. That's been the best polish I've found so far. And you just use like an old t-shirt. Cotton t-shirt works the best. The mouthpieces. Oh, so after I was kind of posting some pictures of, where's the original? This one. After I was kind of posting pictures of this mouthpiece, Richard Bobo asked, Richard Bobo really generously offered to print me some using his printer. So for those of you that don't know about 3D printing, there's several different materials that you can use. So most basic printers use PLA. It's a plastic that has a relatively low melting point, and it's made, I believe, out of it's a synthetic plastic. It's made out of, I believe, corn oil or something like that. It's biodegradable and it's made from a sustainable source, something like that. But anyway, it's the most common plastic you tend to find on 3D printers. But most mouthpieces aren't made from that. Well, most mouthpieces are made from hard rubber, but plastic ones would be made from either acrylic or ABS. So Richard has a printer that does ABS. My printer doesn't really have that capability, at least not yet. I would have to do a few modifications to it. So he very generously offered to print me a mouthpiece. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten his mouthpiece finished. I can't really try it, but that was really nice of him. So it's going to be really interesting to compare how these different mouthpieces made of different materials play. And he also went and printed me these two mouthpieces, but he did what's called smoothing. So basically, ABS, it can be dissolved with acetone. So what he did was, he used acetone vapors to kind of smooth the plastic. So instead of the normal like bumpy, ridged look that you get with 3D printed parts, these things look glossy and absolutely beautiful. So thank you, Richard Bobo. Hopefully I can get these all finished up and they'll play really, really good. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, so I think that's most of the updates on the project. I guess let me talk about kind of my future plans, what I want to do for the next prototype of the Octocontrabass. Yeah, these things are absolutely huge. It's hilarious. So this is a contrabass mouthpiece, which is already huge, and then this thing is so much bigger. yeah, so hopefully those work pretty well with the new instrument. I'm probably going to at least try to do berm system keywork. I couldn't really figure it out for this instrument. I eventually figured it out for this instrument, and the keywork on this works fairly well. It's not great. I think I'm going to keep the staying like paperclip style. I kind of base this instrument on the Contrabass clarinet, and I really like how it looks. So I think I'm going to do that. I don't think I'm going to be using ABS pipe for the next prototype. I'm probably going to be using. I found a source for polypropylene pipe with help with the response. So I found a source for that. It's a bit expensive, but it's definitely worth it for making a good prototype. So yeah, I'm going to keep Octocontra instruments from LeBlanc. I'm fairly certain that the bell on the Octocontrabass clarinet is just an alto clarinet bell, which I think is also true for the paperclip Contralto and Contrabass clarinets. And I believe the bell on the Octocontrabass clarinet is just which is a summer Contrabass clarinet bell. So one of those few options. Yeah, so that's just my rough plan for the instrument so far. And of course, there's still a lot of design work to do. I'm probably going to utilize 3D printing. I didn't use it at all for these two instruments, except for, of course, the Mouthpiece. But after getting a new 3D printer and kind of seeing what the capabilities of a new printer can do, I feel fairly confident that it would work for the project. Other than that, yeah, I'm probably going to make the keys salvaged from salvage instruments again, probably saxophone keys. And I'm not sure when I'll start it, but that's just kind of something I'm planning in my head for now. First, I do want to get this instrument fixed, because while it's not perfect, it's I think it's still good enough as a prototype, and it should be an okay playing instrument once it's done. When you do that string measurement thing, did you put the string on the outside of the inside? So you kind of have to put it like as close to the middle of the curve as you can. It's kind of hard. You want to use like, what I do is like I put the string, put a piece of tape, move the string a little bit, put more tape, and just kind of do that over the length of the instrument. And you want to make sure you use a string that doesn't stretch. So I think like nylon, like paracord or whatever it's called, like that nylon string that you can get, that works pretty well. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I do. And I think when you measure the instrument as you can get, if that makes any sense, probably doesn't, but just start at the tip of the mouthpiece. Another interesting thing I actually noticed from from pictures of the original Octocontrabass clarinet. So somebody on YouTube pointed out to me that there's thumb keys on the instrument, just like you would see on a regular paperclip contrabass clarinet, where the thumb keys would be, obviously this instrument doesn't have it, but there would be a low C key and a low C sharp key on the left side to add a low C extension to it. But kind of looking at pictures, I noticed that these pretty sure these keys actually connect to 2 additional register vents on the instrument. I've mentioned before that from pictures, I figured out that there were 4 register vents on the instrument. So as best I can tell, the original instrument had 2 vents controlled by the standard register key, just like any contrabass clarinet. And then it also had 2 additional vents controlled by the right thumb, at least from what I could tell. Even this one vent, I think if I moved it up a little bit, or actually down a little bit, I think I could get away with just having 1 vent in the instrument. And I'm probably not going to do that. I'd rather have 2 vents just because it'll make it clearer. But yeah, so I don't know why they have extra vents. Maybe it was just because it's an experimental instrument, but it's maybe something to consider when designing the prototype. So that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about. So let me know if you guys have any questions about it. I think I kind of ran out of things to talk about. Oh, actually, I do have one more thing I want to talk about. So I did mention that I got a 3D printer. So I originally did plywood, and it kind of got me into the hobby, but I never really thought it would be useful for anything. But the new printer I got is an Ender 3, and I've been absolutely blown away with the quality. So I've been making all kinds of accessories. This one is this is a neck for a Selmer alto clarinet I'm making for a customer. I like sand it and stain it so it looks exactly like wood. And it's been coming out really good. So I think I might be making some parts for the new the new prototypes from this stuff, because it just looks absolutely phenomenal. I think like an Octocontrabass clarinet with like a wood finish would look absolutely beautiful. But that's just something interesting that I could potentially do. All right, guys. So it looks like I haven't seen any other questions in the chat, so I think I'm gonna call it quits for the night. I think I've updated you guys on everything I've done since the last update. Get my shop set up, I can start making more progress. Yep. Oh yeah. Everyone, stay safe. I hope you're all following the social distancing stuff. Yeah, it's been really crazy. I mean, I guess the one good thing is I've been kind of working from home, so I have a little bit of extra time to work on projects, although I've still been staying busy at least. So yeah, I hope you guys all stay safe. Hopefully this will all be over in a few weeks. Everything